Star Wars fans, welcome back to Flying Casual's formal occasion. No, it's not Trivia Trials. It's even more formal than that, Holly.
I kind of feel like we're a little more informal than we were during Trivia Trials. There's no Power Blazer here tonight, folks.
No Power Blazer, no pants. It's a warm one here in the loft, so still no pants. Sans pants. This is our book club, our formal book club, our Hyperspace happy hour. Drinks in hand. I got a margarita. You promised me a sparkling seltzer, Holly, but you went something a little stiffer.
We actually didn't go with a margarita. I thought that you said that was a Port in the Storm. Which is topical for our book.
I don't even know what a Port in the Storm is.
Michael didn't read the book, apparently.
You're throwing references out that I just don't understand, and my comprehension level is elementary.
Guys, if there's one thing I'll remember from this book, it's all the alcohol this reference.
Is there a lot of alcohol? It's been years since I've read it. Is there a lot of alcohol?
So much alcohol.
Yeah.
So much alcohol.
A lot of drinking.
Well, Holly, I'm so happy that you finally got back into the book club. It's been a couple months, but they've been some weird times.
We had to go on a hiatus. I think it was best for everybody.
Some dark times, some Law and Order times. I think that's how we're going to remember these times.
Sure.
But maybe not. Not the television show Law and Order. We need to be clear about that.
I mean, we did have a Bones reference earlier.
There was a Bones reference by one of our Padawans, so that was, everyone shout out your favorite television show.
Schitt's Creek.
That's a good one.
I don't know.
Rebels is a good one.
I'm the only one shouting any TV shows.
Law and Order SVU.
Ugh.
No takers. We're back, Holly. We read Bloodline. I would say probably 3 months ago.
Well, it depends on who you ask.
Okay, so myself a few years ago, you 20 minutes ago.
That's correct.
Finished it.
Finished it.
It's been a wild ride the past few months, so we got on schedule. We're going to get back on schedule with the book club and start things anew. But Holly, we've got a hell of a panel today, and maybe more are going to drop in at any point. I have no idea.
I mean, if it happens, we don't have Law and Order.
We don't have Law and Order on the set.
Organized chaos.
Absolutely. We got a hell of a panel today. Who we got?
We do. We have Brent.
Brent, how's it going, buddy?
Muted. I'm doing good. How is everyone out there doing?
Beautiful. And a young Padawan here to hopefully share her thoughts as well on Bloodline. I don't even know if we talked about what book we're talking about.
Well, you did. You said it, but I'll say it again.
Absolutely.
We read Bloodline by Claudia
Lawlessness.
Gray. No order, though.
It's the margarita. Who else we got with us?
We have Jory.
Jory. Power's back on in the state up north.
He's not in Kansas.
Not in Kansas.
Nope, not in Kansas. Power's back on. It came on about 2 o'clock today, so it's been a long week, but good things.
Absolutely. Dorothy is home now, folks. Don't tell Jory's wife that the power's back on. Her and the kids are at the grandparents' house right now. Jory is flying solo, so if you're watching live somehow, don't tell the family. He's enjoying himself, adult beverage in hand there, unless that's an IBC root beer, which it could be.
It's a Killian's actually. So
delicious. I like me a little Irish. Wow.
I was ahead of it.
Racing. And our last panel list here, Holly. Panelist.
Is Paige.
Paige.
Yep.
Book club is back, Paige. How you feeling?
I read it, 3 months ago, but it's fine.
Blame Holly for that.
I felt like that was
fine
for me.
I kept texting Holly and being like, know, what's happening with the book?
We actually could have hosted a club. We would have just had a shot on a blank chair, and it would have been hostless.
Yeah, I guess it would have been just you.
Yeah, as much as I recall from the book.
Yeah.
And guys, like I mentioned, we may have others dropping in. Luke is probably going to pop up here at some point. Rob may make an appearance. Wes may drop in. It's lawlessness. Who knows what's going to happen? People are going to call in. They may drop out. It may just be me at the end of this thing, but we will surely find out. Now, Holly, I don't know how much I'm going to be able to contribute to this discussion. I recall loving this book, and I read a brief synopsis before we got started. The name Casterfo sticks out to me, and those names are kind of sticking out to me. Or Casterfo, whatever his name.
No, it's Casterfo. That's correct.
I think I made an incorrect reference on Rebel Watch saying Casterfell, and I was made fun of because I didn't listen to the audiobook. But so I don't know how much I'm going to be able to contribute, but I'm going to offer as much assistance as I can.
Well, guys, I had a weird experience with this book, which may have contributed in part to why it took me so long to get through it. Because I thought that I had the great idea. Everyone's always speaking so highly of the audiobook. So I was like, man, you know what? It's free to rent the audiobook from the library. So I'm just going to do it.
Yeah.
And then I thought maybe it would be a good idea to listen to the audiobook throughout the day while I'm working. That's not a good idea.
Yeah.
But it's just, then it expired. And then at night I would try to read, but not listen to the audiobook. So I was going back and forth between the audiobook and the actual physical copy of the book. And it just was a little bit complicated to do.
You can't do that, Holly.
You can't
do that.
You have a character made up in your mind. You're like, I know how this person sounds. I know how they look. I know their personality. And then you sometimes get quite the opposite in an audio version.
Yeah, there were some of the voices that I couldn't get past, like specifically Han Solo, but that's okay because I didn't finish it with the audiobook. And there's lots of Han Solo at the end. So,
what was it about Han? What was it about Han?
I don't know. It was
like a teenage
kind of like
Han?
his bro voice.
Like he got back from Put-in Bay.
Yeah.
Like he was
a Put-in Bay bro.
Yeah. Okay.
Yikes.
No. Yikes, she says. But guys, I'm honest with you. I had a hard time getting through this one. It probably was not my favorite Star Wars book that I've ever read. Well, it was also maybe my second Star Wars book I ever read.
What sound effects do I use here? Oh my God! Alert everyone, because that's a shocker.
If you labeled those, you would know what sounds.
Yeah, that would be a responsible host, and I am just not that.
But anyway, I just wanted to get, we could start out with what your guys' thoughts are on the book, because I think that we had a varying amount of interest in this one. I did place a poll in the group in March, phrasing. And I gave phrasing.
A poll for the taking.
Double phrasing.
I'm dying.
But the majority of people really wanted to read Bloodline.
Yeah. It's hey, let me come out front and say I thought it was a good one. I think I voted for Bloodline myself.
All right. You didn't read it though.
I know I voted for it, but that was because I had already read it. It was going to be easy for me to get through it.
I didn't vote for it.
So. No, Paige actually voted for the book that we're going to read next.
Yeah.
Because I want to, and it's my book club.
Well, there's a lot of people that had read Bloodline before we even, put the poll up. And I think everyone just had a sense of where we were going in this nation. And they're like, you know what? We're going to need a softball here.
You know what? It is relevant.
Yeah.
And I will say this, and we can get to this later, because
come on.
Maybe we can talk about it in terms of today's political climate. I kind of felt like you could draw a lot of parallels between what was happening in Bloodline and what's happening now.
Yeah.
But I want to pass it to you three and see what you guys thought of it, what your general thoughts were, how you liked, how the characters were portrayed, whatever you guys want to talk about. So maybe we'll start with Brent, because he did say earlier that he really liked the one.
Absolutely.
So I definitely I enjoyed the book. I don't know, there's so many things to kind of talk about within it. I thought I did a really good job of kind of presenting, especially when you get into The Force Awakens and wonder, why is Leia not involved with this? So, why is she not there? Why is she over doing this? And it really sets up, why she's not part of the government anymore, why the Resistance has no support from the government, from New Republic or whatever, and why they're kind of out on their own. And it all kind of revolves around, the bloodline, which we'll get into eventually. You don't want to spoil it right out of the gate. Not like anyone doesn't know already, but.
Right.
But yeah, I thought it did a really good job of kind of setting some stuff up as to where we're at within The Force Awakens. It still left a lot of things that need to be answered as to how we got there. But I think after listening to it again, I've kind of figured out the timeline a little bit better as to how things are going on, and maybe some insight as to, why her and Han are, separated by the time we get to Force Awakens, stuff like that. So we'll get to that here in a little bit.
Yeah, this was obviously my first and only time reading through this, and I did like it more towards the end of the book than I did in the beginning, maybe various reasons why. But I do wonder if I read it a second time all the way through in just one platform, if maybe it would have a different
Sans Pandemic, Sans audio version,
Just like with me, myself, and I.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. Jory, was this your first time reading Bloodline?
No, it wasn't. And it's actually funny that you say that, because that was actually somewhere I was going to go direction-wise. I was able to, because of how long we had, I was able to listen through like 3 or 4 times. Nice. And I actually listened through twice prior to even, this, I guess, cycle of listening through. And the first 2 times, I had such a hard time even just like following along with, because I feel like we're so, all over the place, and maybe not necessarily even all over the place, just it was very hard to keep track of everything that was happening all at once, and to make the connections that you're supposed to make, to make it all one cohesive story. The more times that I listened, the better the story got. And maybe it's because, I had other things going on, so I wasn't able to pay attention as deeply as, you should when you're reading a book. But it's just really funny that you mentioned that, Holly, that it was, it wasn't cohesive for you, or even, that you had that experience with it.
Yeah, I got a little bit confused when we kept like bouncing around to different planets, and I felt like I had a really hard time keeping all the different locations straight. Mm-hmm. That was something that I struggled with during this novel too. Like, okay, so half of us are on Daxam 4, or Daxam 4.
Yeah,
it's the 4th
That's
one.
A planet
yep.
that exists,
right? And then half of us were somewhere else, and I was like,
there's a Harloff Minor. There's these different factions.
Han Solo's off racing somewhere that's apparently more important than what Leia's doing right now.
Yeah,
obviously.
Selfish guy.
Well,
I mean,
spoiler. Right. Major spoiler.
Yeah, hey.
Paige, tell us what you think.
Okay, I have thoughts.
Extensive.
Come on, let's go.
I wrote them
Paige
down.
has put down some thoughts.
I liked the book. I liked all of the politics. And I liked how that wasn't the total focus. But what I liked most is that it focused on Leia actually dealing with things instead of running away and shutting everything down and shoving it down into a deep, dark cave like I do. I think that was very important. And it shows how smart she is and how good she is at acting in the moment. Like, she can act like a total, like, different person in the moment. And I think that's important to show, because sometimes she gets overshadowed by Han and Luke. As much as I love Luke, he just waves a lightsaber around. I love Luke. I love Luke. I would be the Luke out of my friend group. I love Luke, but Leia is just like the politician out of them, so she doesn't get her due as much. Fair. And she couldn't like lie her way out of all of this stuff, and she had to confront her parentage on both sides. So I think that was really important, and that's something that a lot of people in the fandom on the Tumblr, which I am always on, people like argue about like who is more her parent, like Anakin and Padme or Bail and Brea. And I'm like, I think it's both people. Like, you can't separate the two. So I think that was really important. And I think it also showed how alone she is.
Yeah.
And I think that's important too. And that how desperate she was to stop focusing on a life of service and duty so she could just be with her family.
Yeah.
Yeah. And like, no matter what happens, like, she just kept getting pulled back to all the politics of it all, I mean, the whole time that I was listening / reading this novel, I kept thinking like, okay, so she was going to retire from the Senate in the beginning of the book. Like, that was her big plan. She told Han, he was like, no, that's a joke. That's never going to happen. Well, he was right. Yeah. But she was going to retire. And how different would things have been if she had actually retired?
They'd be on Scarif, right? Probably hanging out in an old Imperial bunker, sipping on some cocktails. I mean, I think it would be a lot different.
Well, I don't know. I mean, by the time we get to the end of the book, she's, kind of put into retirement, and we still wind up where we're at with Force Awakens. So.
That's true.
That's true.
It just might have taken her a little bit longer to find out what was going on and, start everything back up. Unless, they just took off and was like, forget this. I'm going to the outer regions, and I'm going to go hang with Octu and on Octu with Luke and drink some green milk and
I'm never
spearfish and have a nice day.
Can you imagine Oh, sorry, Jory, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, are we really just going to skip over the fact that Paige just said that Luke Skywalker was just...
I almost muted her, Jory.
I love him. I defend Luke all the time. I'm the Luke out of my friend group, and I'm always like, I get it. And my best friend's always like, look, they had to throw Luke something because he's just like the sad farm boy. Like, Leia is the better twin. She's like a lot more powerful in the Force. They just don't show it. And I agree. They had to give Luke something. They had to give him something. Like,
there's a lot to what she's saying, because in the 40th version, celebration of version book, whatever, the short stories of a certain point of view, right? Yep. I mean, that's who Yoda wants to train. Yep. Like, Yoda wants to train Leia. She's more put together. She's more level-headed. She's ready, and that's what Yoda says.
And she's more responsible. She's more proactive. She understands that in order to make these changes, you actually have to be present.
And can we talk about what Paige mentioned about the parentage? Because something that I was thinking about when I was going back and reading the synopsis, because I did read the book, it just was a long time ago when it first came out. Talking about her parentage, I mean, it takes me, like, the circumstances in this book are very similar to Padme's, right? There's this threat. It's got the Republic kind of in chaos, and there's, we need law and order. We need a strong central government.
Law and order.
But Padme, I don't want to say Padme gives in, right? Because she doesn't. She obviously, I mean, her and Anakin sitting there fighting the droid, she says these are aggressive negotiations, like making a joke on what she said before. And so I don't want to make it sound like she just kind of gave in to, like, letting Palpatine run things, but, like, she just kind of sat there and said, this is how democracy dies, right? With thunderous applause. Mm-hmm. And I feel like when Leia came to that moment, she's almost just like a better version of her mother, and she's obviously much more experienced too at this point too.
Yeah,
seen a lot more than her mother had, and just kind of almost picked up where her mother left off. Like, this isn't gonna do it. Like, my destiny isn't here. Like, it's not gonna get done. Almost giving up on politics and saying, we got to do something bigger.
Yeah,
something more drastic.
Brent, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, I think kind of those parallels are a little bit different, because when in Padme's case, the Emperor was already there and in power, and she was, outvoted, 10,000 to 1. True. As far as we're going to build this army by everything else in the Senate, where right now the Senate is still split and they have no ruler, which is kind of where they're, which is where everything kind of takes us, where the direction goes within the story. Yeah. And so she's in a position now to, what do I walk away and just kind of let it go, as kind of what happened with her mom, where she didn't, it wasn't by her choice, but it's what happened. Or do I step up and now do I do this? And as much as she wants to quit and go just fly around the galaxy with Han, she knows that, if you go to the centrist, what's going to happen is going to go straight back to Palpatine, sort of thing, where if she, at least if she goes in there, then there's the chance, because of who she is, that people will listen for at least a couple days.
Yeah. Yeah.
Jory?
Yeah, it's funny because Leia even in her inner monologue, even says that, am I going to do what my mother did, when she was at the Senate meeting with Palpatine's, and having that same, inner dialogue with herself, how did my mother feel? How do I, do my own, or take my own path, with dealing with this almost same situation.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think that there is a point in Bloodline where she says, I'm as much my mother as I am my father. And she was referring to Padme. She wasn't referring to Breha. And I think that was kind of her way of being like, look, I come from, if you will, this part of me has like bad blood, Darth Vader, but also like there was my mother, and she was a queen, and she was very strong, and she tried to do the right things as much as she could when she had the opportunity to, right? And I think that line really stood out to me when she said it. I really like that.
And reading this book and then seeing the rise of Skywalker too, with Rey having to denounce her heritage, right? This book really makes you show how they do have such a close bond. And it's a shame we didn't see more of it in the film, but like, this kind of shows you that they have so much in common, and that's why they hit it off. She understands what she's going through. She understood she was a Palpatine for much longer than we thought. So that was mind blowing. But yeah, Paige, go ahead.
So I think another important point that made her a little bit different than Padme is she also has Anakin's personality a bit, and that's the important difference. And I mean, she deals with that in this book too, which is again incredibly important. And that kind of goes with how Carrie played her in the original trilogy. Carrie always said that she played her like she was about to like yell at someone, like scream at someone. And I think that totally fits with how Anakin acts. I mean, yeah, he can be kind of I just finished Clone Wars, so like I'm like deep in it, but like he can be totally rational and like a good person, but he also has like that I'm going to take care of this and I'm not going to be a cog in the machine kind of ideal, which is exactly how she acts in this book. She's like, I'm going to go on this mission and I know it's not like legal, but I'm going to do it anyway mindset. And I think that makes her different than Padme.
Great point.
Very like unapologetically headstrong.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Jory?
I was just going to say, you know, when we talked, or you mentioned about, you know, the bad bloodlines, that, you know, she isn't technically a daughter of Darth Vader. She's, you know, at that point, she's a daughter of Anakin Skywalker. Because when, you know, they conceived, I guess you'd say, then, I mean, he wasn't Darth Vader at that point. I mean, if we're going to separate the two people, you know, and I know it kind of gets a little bit deeper into everything, but, you know, when she's conceived, you know, he was still Anakin Skywalker. He became Darth Vader basically at her birth, you know. So it's, you know, we're going to go down those tracks. You know, we do have to separate that, you know, she was, I guess, a child of the light, and then, I guess, brought into the world right as the darkness and Vader came out.
Well, let's break that down a little bit, because I think that's a really important thing in this novel too, that kind of they skim over a little bit, because to us as Star Wars fans, I think that most of us do differentiate between Anakin Skywalker and Darth Vader. To us, those are two different people. But what I got from the book when, you know, it was found out that she was a daughter of Darth Vader, nobody else differentiates between them being two people, one and the same person. So his sins were her sins, regardless of who he was when she was conceived.
Well, and if am I remembering this correctly, in that she mentions Anakin's redemption? She mentions it, but that wasn't her experience, right? Like Luke's told her about it, that, you know, our father redeemed himself. He saved me. He saved the galaxy. But that wasn't her experience with him, if I recall. She says, I remember being tortured by this person.
Yes.
So it's almost like it's too bad, because she doesn't see, you know, him as this father figure, and this, you know, it wasn't like, I don't know, she was ashamed of that heritage. I wish we knew more about like Luke's experience after it and what he shared with me. We don't get a lot of that, but I'm pretty sure she was, you know, that's all. She didn't really look at him like as a hero of anything, and so to her, that she needed to keep it close to the chest. So it's interesting that Luke just telling her this is what happened didn't really seem to change her mind much. So as much as like people talk about this being the story of, you know, Anakin's redemption, like his daughter didn't even embrace that notion that he was saved, that he was the actual hero that everyone deserved. I thought that was fascinating, because I just assumed Luke went back and said, guys, check this. Darth Vader, our father, totally turned, killed the Emperor, saved everyone, and everyone would embrace him. But that is not the case at all.
I don't think anyone knows that Anakin Skywalker even turned into Darth Vader. No one had any idea Anakin was even a factor in all of this before.
Because Palpatine probably thought that could be even used against him. Like, he wouldn't really want anyone to know that this dude used to be a former Jedi.
And that's what they said, right? That all of that, like any like biological breadcrumbs, I don't know what else to call it, would have I don't know if that's the right thing to say, but they would have been erased, right? Because Palpatine wouldn't have wanted anybody to risk finding that out and then trying to either clone Anakin or Darth Vader.
Or use it against use it, turn him or somehow.
Yeah, I think even in this book, I think Leia still kind of thought of them as two separate people, because when she talks about Luke coming back and telling her what happened, and that Anakin basically came back and defeated Vader and then defeated the Emperor, as even Luke treated them as two separate people, and I think she still views them as two different people as well. It's like, yes, her father is Anakin, happened to be Darth Vader, but Darth Vader is not who she relates to when even she kind of thinks back on it or whatever. It's just kind of the way that she is. And I don't know, I kind of lost my train of thought there or whatever. I was watching Luke. He ran off doing something.
Hey, that's fair. You got to watch the child.
Watch the youngling.
So I don't know. I thought I was just kind of blown away by all of that. And I want to know what you guys think now, because I think a lot of us read this book probably before the Ben Solo comic came out, before Rise of Skywalker, like all of this stuff that we now know. And just when I was reading the synopsis, and just like this secret that Leia's been keeping, and her son has no idea. For her now, she's like, well, the world knows, and he's bound to find out. I need to write him this letter. Does what we've seen, like, now with all the other material, does it make this much more impactful to you guys? We don't know exactly how everything happened, but does it change your perspective of this book at all?
I feel like Paige has something to say.
Oh, I have I mean, Ben's 23 at this time, right? I did the maths. And it's like the same time that he kills Ren and leaves Luke. So I cannot believe that Leia would not tell her child about this before he would skedaddle off with Luke to go train to be a Jedi. I cannot believe that would happen.
Yeah.
Especially because Luke thinks, I guess I wouldn't say a lot more highly of Darth Vader, but I think Luke would be more likely to tell him because he truly thinks that there was a redemption there. Whether Leia does or not, Luke and her don't see eye to eye on Darth Vader's character at the end.
Right.
Yeah. And let's remember. Go ahead.
I was just looking at the part where she was talking to the Senate, and it said at a certain point when Luke was telling her, he stopped referring to him as Darth Vader and only referred to him as Anakin.
Yeah.
So there's no way. There's no way. It's just like how I don't believe that Han and Leia would have gotten divorced. I have major problems with that. Holly knows about this. She's listened to me rant about this. I don't believe she would have waited till her kid's 23 to tell her this big, huge secret that could have just blown up his entire worldview and kicked her son over to the dark side.
Well, think about the new canon, like especially like that's a lot of what people say about Luke. Like that's not my Luke Skywalker. He never. It's like what this, in my opinion, what new canon has beautifully done. It's made them much more human, because if you look at the expanded universe, Han, Chewie, they're all out doing cool things. It seems hunky-dory. Like, they're kind of a knit group going out and fighting evil and stuff. But this makes them more human, in my opinion. Like, it just – I can see her being like, this is my own flesh and blood, and I'm so protective of this person. I just don't want them to even know that there's evil out there, even though they know that their bloodline – has the potential to go in that direction. It is all about failure. Her failure, Luke's failure of like knowing. He didn't tell him either, obviously. And so, I mean, she thinks I can't handle this kid, and I need to pass him off to Luke. Maybe he can do something about this darkness I sense in him. Is this the book where she sensed, when she said I've sensed some darkness in him from the womb? There's something about that. I don't know.
That's an aftermath.
That's an aftermath.
I was like, I don't remember that.
That's aftermath. Okay. Yeah. Well, there's a spoiler. So she knows.
Great, thanks.
Really sorry. She knows there's something there, and I just am not going to be able to deal with this. But now, like in Rise of Skywalker, she says, I left that all to take care of my son, because I didn't want his upbringing to be sacrificed because I was doing this other thing. So it's.
Jory.
Well, go ahead, Jory.
I was just gonna say, like, once we start getting into like the new canon stuff, they, like you were just saying, they do a really good job of humanizing our characters that we've idolized for so long. Yeah. And as a parent myself, like, I don't know how I personally would deal with that. So I can't judge Leia for dealing with it in that way, because of the fact of, like you were just saying, like, you do anything for your kids to protect them, to do what is best for them, no matter if it's right or wrong at the time. Yeah. You kind of figure it out as you go. And so, you know, when she doesn't tell him, you know, she's, you know, and she really has this big monologue, or not monologue, but when she's arguing with Ransom, or not Ransom, she's arguing. Yeah, she is arguing with Ransom. She has this big argument with him because he says, you know, you've been holding it from us for all these years. And she says, you know, basically, I haven't even been able to tell my son. And he says, well, what do you mean you haven't been able to tell your son? Yeah. And she says, anything we've held from him was what, you know, was for the best for him, or what at least I thought was the best for him. Yeah. You know, and you could tell at that point that she's not a perfect parent. She knows she's not a perfect parent, because nobody is, and that she's just doing what is best in her mind for her child at the time. No matter whether he's, you know, 6 or 23, you know, she's just trying to guide him in that guidance, you know, sending him to Luke to basically, hey, you know, we can't really get a wrap on this whole darkness that we sense in him, you know, maybe you can do it. And so, like, I get why she doesn't tell him about, you know, Darth Vader, especially if he was already kind of leaning towards that, you know, the dark side anyways.
Yeah, that speaks a lot to the lineage too, right? Like, he doesn't know anything about Vader, Palpatine. He doesn't know any of this stuff. Maybe he does, you know, through interactions with other people, but like, that's just an innate darkness that's coming out in him that she's sensing, because she's pretty attuned with what's going on. But Paige isn't alone. Like, so many people feel that way, and like, that was, to me, a huge challenge for Disney, saying, or even like George Lucas first allowing these stories to be told. You know, like, he didn't really care. He's like, that's not really my stars. Do whatever you want. But like, then Disney come in and say, you know, we're going to retell this story, and it's going to be drastically different. I mean, they've set up so many, just, this is how people view these characters, and they're superheroes to people, and to bring them more down to a level to where they make mistakes and stuff. Some people were really off put by that. And I was too in the beginning. It just took me a while to, like, after The Last Jedi, I guess, especially, just kind of accept it. Like, I get what you're saying. I get what you're putting down, but what a challenge to change fans' minds who were reading probably the EU and are now reading these books, and they're totally different. Yeah. It's just a huge challenge.
Yeah, I think. See, I loved The Last Jedi too. So, and I didn't get overly mad about Luke, because I understood that it was like about dealing with failure, and I thought that was really powerful. Yeah. But it makes it more. I've read the Han and Lando book, and I don't remember what it's called, but it's just so much more sad when you see that Han was so scared of failing Ben, because Ben's like a toddler at that time. Yeah. He's so afraid of failing him and messing him up. Yep. Yeah. And like, there's like a droid watching him all the time, and the droid was made by Lando, and the droid has no idea what it's doing, and it's just. It makes it so much more sad, I guess. Absolutely. That all of that happened. And I figured that since Leia had such a bad situation with her own parents, like in the previous book, that wouldn't happen. But no, you're right. She's a human being, so she's not going to be perfect.
Yeah. But I totally get what you're saying. Yeah.
So, question for you guys.
And I may add Rob here. I don't think this is going to make any noise, but just FYI. Okay.
So I guess my question for everybody is, I don't know if you all have read the comics, the Rise of Kylo Ren comics. So if you haven't, this might not line up right for you. But in the comic, we kind of jump in and we see the temple being destroyed, and Kylo is like, it wasn't me, I didn't do it. And I'm trying to fit that timeline into when it was found out that Leia was Darth Vader's daughter in this book. Do you guys think that Kylo found out about that from the holo that Leia sent, or do you think he found out from somebody else?
Good question.
That's a tough one.
I think he found out from the other people, not from Leia's holo, because this one was leaked before. Welcome aboard. What was I saying? But no, I think that he might have found out, if he didn't know already, that he found out from the Centrist leak of the video, not the one that she got there, because that was leaked before she sent his to her. And at that point in time, they were already out of communication. So that's where it really gets kind of fuzzy in the timeline as to when the temple was destroyed and when all this shook out, and what he knew at what point in time. But I do think that Leia not telling Ben might be what led to Han and Leia's estrangement or whatever, because in this book they're still cordial, they're still talking with each other, everything's still hunky-dory. And I think, when it gets to the end and everything kind of shakes out, he's kind of come back, like, wait, what do you mean you didn't tell him? And I think that kind of would have started everything kind of down that path. And then wait, you didn't tell him, and then they find out, oh wait, he blew up the temple. And I think there's just a large conglomeration of things that happened that kind of led to their estrangement. It doesn't explain why Ben hates Han.
Right.
It's a totally different story that hopefully we'll get told one day. But
great point that they were getting along, and what seemed to really divide them was them finding out about Ben and Snoke's involvement. This is just a general question. I know there's a lot of characters here, and we know the First Order is kind of plotting these
disruption.
Yeah, they're funding these organizations to disrupt the Republic. I mean, how much of that is to the credit of Palpatine? Is it him masterminding all of this and saying, it really screw up Leia's chances of creating this really powerful Republic? Maybe we send our minions in to spread the word. I don't know. Is it just this is how the dominoes fell?
You don't want my answer.
Come on, Paige.
Okay, what is it?
They didn't have the Palpatine thing. I don't buy that they had the Palpatine thing planned the whole time. I don't buy it. I don't buy it. So I think the First Order was like a whole thing with like Brendel Hux and all of those kind of people from the beginning. I don't know if Palpatine really was well enough at this point to
he was like a little blob or something.
He was like a little blob with a fingernail, probably, in like a tube, theoretically. I don't know if he really was able to move capital, like the funding, to be doing those kind of things.
Probably all set up ahead of time by his master plan.
Yeah, with the people in the choir and all of that. So maybe they were doing it. I don't know.
Those shady people.
They could have been doing it. I don't know.
They knew a lot.
Anything could happen. I think that it seems like potentially, if we want to say that the Palpatine thing was like planned, then you could say it was planning this behind the scenes without, like, didn't want to tell everyone, like, I'm back,
a blob. Yeah.
But planting the seeds, I guess.
Holly, we actually have an insider that's just joined us. Kylo Ren himself, Ben Solo. He may actually have some insight into this.
That y'all didn't know.
Kylo Ren, aka Rob, in the house. Rob, as Kylo Ren, can you disclose if Palpatine actually had planned Leia's reveal and everything that was going on in the Republic at this time? Like, is this all Palpatine's doing?
This was my doing.
I love it. I love it. Guys, this is Rob's first book club joining us. Not his first book. He's blowing through the books, but his first book club joining us. So
welcome.
We're deep in conversation now, Rob. So feel free to jump in.
He loved it.
That's what I'm talking
about. I just came in. Thanks again, and hello to everybody. So I saw that the book we're doing is The Dark Disciples, right?
Well, the next one's gonna be.
Oh, okay.
Did that already get announced?
Millennium Falcon, man. I was trying to go for the Millennium Falcon. I was like, come on, you guys want some more Londo? Because we need more Londo in our life.
It's coming. It's coming. I may have mentioned that in a messenger chain, Holly, that there may have been leaks of the next book. We'll have to see.
Well, I announced at the beginning of this book club, so
I missed that too.
knows.
Did I black out for the first introduction? I must have.
I missed that one too.
Maybe I said no, and I didn't say it out loud.
Hey guys, it's a pandemic. Things are weird. No.
It is.
That's right.
So you guys just got done reading the Leia book, right?
Bloodline.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. I did not get to that.
That's okay. Hey, if you want to stick around, there might be some spoilers.
Ahead.
But that's fine. There's nothing to be. I mean, spoilers. I mean, when you go canon, EU, I mean, you got like a map.
That's what I'm talking about, man. Because we're blending a lot of this new canon stuff, talking about Rise of Skywalker, talking about the comics. So it's all kind of coming together.
It is
very nicely.
Mm-hmm. Well, Rob, to catch you up, we're talking about the moment when in this book, big spoiler, it is announced to the Senate that Leia is the daughter of Darth Vader, and it's a whole thing.
Yeah,
it's a big deal.
Yeah, I mean, you think they would have found that out a little sooner, but with Star Wars, everything's always so clouded.
Yeah.
So I assume that's why you were all talking about how Palpatine probably already had that play in motion before that was even presented.
Yeah, and that's what Paige was saying. Like, and I think a lot of us agree that like we don't really think Disney had any plans from the beginning of their purchase to bring Palpatine back, but now they can go back and say, you know what? Palpatine actually, I mean, obviously was working with the First Order and all that good stuff, but what else was he doing behind the scenes?
But maybe Jory disagrees.
Jory?
I do disagree.
Okay, Jory.
And the reason why I say that is because there's going to be slight spoilers for the Aftermath series.
Come on.
But in the Aftermath series, Brendel and it's not Brendel, it's Hux. I mean young Hux. Jeez, oh Pete, I'm blanking on the name.
Armitage.
Yeah, Armitage.
Yeah.
He is sent off to do training with young ones, by Palpatine himself. And so like there's this whole, like if you actually really go back and look into Aftermath, they go pretty deep into how he had this whole master plan kind of from the very beginning, and then once again, I don't want to get too many spoilers for the whole Aftermath, but I think they had, at least if they didn't have it all in one cohesive thing, but they at least had something, in the background of, hey, we could go this way if we wanted to.
Yeah. Hey, Rob, you want to mute your music? Do you mind?
Oh, nope. I got it right over here. Hold on.
Sorry, man. Skype, like, whenever it hears something, it, like, mutes everyone else, and then it, like, lets that. So, dude, no worries. I was just like, man, somebody. It's like somebody's rocking some cool tunes. What's going on? Yeah, I don't know, man. I don't know.
It's weird. I'm thinking that, Palpatine, he had his hands in a lot of cookie dishes, even after he wasn't around, in his physical presence. But I think this reveal was just purely coincidental as far as the bloodline, because the way Lady Carice finds out about it, she wasn't even supposed to be in the vault in the first place, but Leia's like, no, I don't care about your honorary title, you go take it. So, it's just, in the way that she came across the information, that wasn't, like a Palpatine plant or anything like that. That was just like, I have this information, now what can I do to take her down? And it's kind of like, it's all opportunist and, all political and whatever. And, like I said, he's got his hand in a lot of cookie jars, but just not that one. It just kind of worked out to play in his favor.
But you know what I think is really interesting is how, like, Lady Carice, later known as just Carice, kind of had to juggle, like, am I going to, like, do my job as a noble and, like, abide by the laws of, like, the House of Elders?
Yeah.
Or am I going to play this political card that I was dealt and just, like, bring the centrists back to where I want them to be?
Yeah.
And I feel like her character was really interesting to me because on one hand, she wanted to do the right thing, if you will, and not expose Princess Leia because it wasn't, like, the noble thing that a lady would do. But then she quickly was like, you know what? Forget about it. I'm pissed and my emotions are taking over, and I'm going to try to bring her down.
And it's not that unrealistic of a thing. It's just like the evil of power and how it can corrupt someone. I mean, look at Anakin. Like, it's just, and it's in real life. It's so believable that, you're gonna destroy someone that I think she admired, right? Like, she admired Leia and her strength and what she's gone through, but like, that was just such a shitty thing to do.
And that's something that Leia says later in the book. She kind of reflects on that, and when she also is grappling with her own emotions, and she's like, is this how Anakin felt? Like, is this how easy it is to kind of let the dark side take over when you're feeling all these emotions, especially love?
Yeah.
I don't know. Kind of seems like it.
What a genius plot point, though, I think, because I think a lot of us after Return of the Jedi was just like, yeah, probably everyone knows that, like, Darth Vader was their father, but you know what? He was redeemed, and they're heroes of the rebellion, and they're building this great republic now, and Luke's off, creating a new Jedi order, as small and as chill as it may be, but, he's kind of toned down this hero thing. He's, they're just really great people, but no, like, I never, ever, ever would have expected that to be a story and a Star War, that this was used against Leia to discredit all that she's done. It's just, that blew my mind. That is great writing on Claudia Gray's point. I thought that was just genius.
Bringing up the dark side. Sorry to interrupt. As I bringing up the dark side, it kind of brings up that when she gets the video of her killing Jabba. Number one, that was just awesome. But number two, when she's talking about that and kind of thinking and reflecting back on it, she basically describes herself as tapping into the dark side at that point in time to be able to do it, because she's talking about, the strength needed to actually asphyxiate a hut. I mean, because you got to get through all that fat and all that layer of whatever to be able to press it down. And, and she basically describes herself, she had to tap into the dark side to do it because she was so angry about everything that was happening at the time. And it's like, and the only way she's going to pull that off is to tap in the dark side. I just thought that was pretty awesome.
And she relished in it too. She held on to that, that was like a prized possession for her. So that was a memory that, like, she would revisit and be like, yeah, I did that. And like, not be sad about the fact that she was so crazy in that moment.
Well, and it also was something that caused a lot of the crime syndicates to admire her. Like, she was trying to get rid of him, but they're like, you're the Hutt Slayer. Like, you're kind of a BA.
Yeah.
Like,
I think Luke was probably the only Skywalker that never tapped into the dark side on Tatooine. I mean, we know what his dad did there.
Seriously. I mean, maybe. I mean, other than, him about to strike down his nephew. I mean, who knows what he's doing on Octu? Yeah. Those dark thoughts. I mean, probably tap into some dark magic. I mean, maybe a Night Sister stopped by and do a little tomb. I don't know. There's a cave.
We need Luke's perspective on Octu with a special guest appearance from a Night Sister.
I'm sorry. Here's the thing. If they do that, if they actually, in all seriousness, if they talk about Luke's experience and what he went through and going there and all that he had been through, I think people would understand this perspective of Luke Skywalker in this new canon story so much better. Because I think they're just like seeing epic Luke on the mountain. They're like, man, he's going to raise some hell. He's going to be pulling down those Star Destroyers. No, man, he is torn. He is destroyed on the inside.
Depressed as hell.
Like, that's what we all do. When we feel responsible for something, we often become recluse. And it's just so relatable. And I feel like a novel could really just flesh that story out. People will be like, damn, Luke's been through some stuff, man. Jory.
No, and not to go back to Leia, but I think that when they talked about her choking Jabba to death, and when we watch the original trilogy, we don't really realize, what she's doing. And then I think this book kind of really taps into, the feat that was, that nobody really, could believe that somebody would be able to do that. Being a woman or a human, anybody, with just a regular strength. And so it kind of like really taps into the fact that she is force sensitive, and that it's not just the force speaking to her through like her political things and and how her mind works, but that she does have the physical aspects of the force in I guess you'd say like desperate times, that she can tap into that and use the Force to get her out of dangerous situations.
We kind of see that again. Oh gosh, sorry guys. What's that last planet that we go to?
Is it Arloff Minor?
No. Where they bring the cargo, or they go to pick up the cargo.
Oh,
that's a Drek 4 or
no.
Or the other one.
The
Drek
other
4?
one. Nope. Starts with an S.
Oh,
well,
yeah.
Anyway.
No, that's
Cybensko.
Thank you.
Yep.
That's our final planet. Thank you. They even kind of like allude to her tapping into the Force then, because she's by herself. She thinks at first she doesn't have a weapon. She's surrounded by explosives. She is in a really, really bad situation where pretty much she told whoever, was there with her to ultimately go without her no matter what. And then she's like, okay, I'm going to get out of this because I've always had like an uncanny way of like finding my direction.
Mm-hmm.
And I just kind of feel like, and then of course Han came to the rescue, but also, okay, can we talk about real quick, were you guys surprised that it was Han? Because I thought for a brief second, and maybe I'm alone in this, I thought it was going to be Casterfo.
You're not alone.
Okay, but then it was Han.
No, yeah. Casterfo was all up on that.
Paige has a lot to say about this relationship. We have to get into that relationship.
Michael
Holly and I were talking about it.
I stand by that, because where was Han? Right? Like during these times.
Thank you.
Casterfo's an opportunist. I get it. But here's the beautiful thing about it. These two come from opposite sides of the spectrum, right? They want different things. What I love about how sometimes it's a little unrealistic in that they came, so close to agreeing with each other on stuff. But the fact that like just life got in the way and secrets came out, and it just tore these two apart. What could have been. Right, the messiness of politics and everything that it is when two people who come from different perspectives come together, it can actually do good for the galaxy. Things seem to get in the way. Always. It seems like that's the case in our world and even in a galaxy far, far away.
Michael, that was
deep,
very beautifully placed. I was literally going to pose the question: would have Casterfo made a good stepdad to Kylo Ren?
That's a great question. Would Casterfo have been able to bring him from the dark side? I don't know.
Would Rey have been able to call him stepdad too?
I mean, dad.
Let's be honest. And so was Leia. Phrasing.
Wow.
I know that's terrible. See, Paige is just like, no, that's not my Star Wars. There's no way. There would have been some love triangle between these three.
Paige is gonna hang up, and then there will just be three.
What gets me, sorry to interrupt, but what gets me is that there's always been this thing about Han being Force sensitive. So maybe that was like that one thing where he kind of came in. He just felt that he had to be there. Because like he always said, he sees things. So I didn't read the book. I didn't know how it was set up. But from what you are saying, I already kind of knew the other person must have been somebody within the Senate and council and stuff like that. So that's what I got.
No, that actually, it's crazy because when we think of the original Star Wars, we're just like, Han was just that scoundrel that just like was a great pilot. He's a lucky guy. And that's kind of how, to me, like even Poe was, or even Finn. But we know Poe his family had this Force tree that they lived by, and maybe that influenced him. And then Finn coming out in Rise of Skywalker being like, Rey, I got something to tell you. It's not I love you, but I'm feeling a tingle inside.
That's my guy.
You know what I'm saying?
Like, you guys, I don't know. Casterfo could have been a real scoundrel. Hello, he like set up some midnight dinners. He whined.
He's a nasty. He's nasty.
That's
and
politics
all up
too.
on Leia.
Yeah,
that is politics.
No,
the married woman.
She didn't get it. She's like, this is so innocent. I'm like, no, it's not. You know it's not. What are you doing? No.
She could definitely read his mind.
I don't know, though, because we do even get stuff from Casterfo's point of view, and it never really mentions that, he's into her as far as, as far, on a romantic level. But it didn't surprise me that Han was the one that swooped in, because I believe at that point Ransom's already in custody. So then, Han swooping in at that point. As soon as they said, it was a speeder, and we know that Han had been, working on the speeder, trying to make it kind of like, the Falcon and things like that, and mounting guns. And so, I mean, it didn't surprise me at all that it was Han that was going to swoop in to save the day. And realistically, it almost seemed like Claudia wanted to get him in a little bit more and show a little bit of Han's hero side again, because we get to see a lot of the things with Han, I guess in new canon, we haven't seen a ton with Han outside of what's shown in the movies. Yeah. So, it was kind of showing Han, he's still got it, he's a little bit older, but he's still got it. And then, he's still doing this a little bit of scoundrel stuff and, able to swoop in and save the day once again.
Yeah, they don't actually really make him out to be that great of a person in new canon, right?
But also, I feel like he does come in and kind of save Leia in that moment, but then you do start to see the cracks in their relationship, because then all he wants to do is get back to his race. Like, okay, you're in a really bad spot physically, emotionally, mentally, but I want to go back to racing.
But I do think that Han would have stayed, because that's what's, even Leia, in her monologue said the same thing. She knows that he will stay if she asks him to stay. It's just he doesn't necessarily want to. So I mean, you could say he's not the greatest at that, but she knows that he will, and anything that she asks, and it almost because she even says in that moment that she always can count on Han no matter what.
Yeah.
If she needs him there, he will be there no matter what. And so, I mean, it almost seems like it works for them, because, they are two separate, just on completely different paths, but they always find their way back to each other. So, I mean, and some people can have that kind of relationship, to where it's like, hey, we'll meet you up later, and that works for them. And other people are, more of the, I need to see you, every day type, you know what I mean? And so, I mean, it just works for some people and not others.
It does kind of give you some insight into like maybe why Ben is the way that he is and has these security issues and this like distrust of people in, positions where like they should be mentoring him or taking care of him, because he didn't, as much as like we think that we know that Leia kind of dropped what she was doing to raise Ben. If her heart really wasn't in it and it was into the politics, and that's where she was thinking that she should have been instead, whether she was with Ben or not, you kind of can see how he's kind of like, nobody cares about me. The dark side does. Snoke does. Yep. He's got a hold of me and he's going to take care of me.
Yeah.
So I feel like, what we're talking about, it does set a good stage to kind of understand Ben more, especially if you get into Rise of Kylo Ren.
Yeah, Rob.
So like in the EU expanded version, and what you are talking about, Han always seems to be like what she originally called him, a flyboy. So that's why, like, when you're talking, he's always away. He's always doing something. So then when you just said right there, what was left for Kylo? Because Leia was always into the politics. She was always that. So who was left? It was Luke. But Luke just was in his own world, just coming off of that, doing all these things. But how would you feel if your mom and dad was like, well, I'm going to go be a politician and I'm going to go find some planes and go do this stuff, and I'm just going to leave it with Luke. Luke really just trained him as technically a Jedi, but he never was a real uncle to him, and he never had a mother and a father to look up to, because they always left him behind. And the only person that really paid attention to him because of his potential was Snoke in the dark side.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's
sure you didn't read this book, Rob?
It's EU. It's EU, man.
It's interesting to think, though, that like what you were mentioning, that we were talking about, like Leia just knowing that Han's going to show up. Like, not that she takes it for granted, but like since episode 4, like he's shown up at the right time. He's always there when they need him. And it's almost like they don't even realize that their son needs more, right? This is how the relationship is. Like, Han shows up when I need him, and like that's just an understanding we have. And even with my brother, like, we did these cool things. Now he's toning it down. He's like, I'm not a celebrity. I'm going to kind of go out and do my own thing. It's just like.
But who's showing up for Ben?
Who's
Paige,
like, he doesn't
who's
have.
showing up for Ben?
Right?
Snoke is.
Yeah.
Snoke is.
Sam?
There it is.
He doesn't have those he doesn't have those experiences. He doesn't have people that he can trust. His mother in Aftermath talked about him being dark from the womb. Like, if you knew that your mother thought of you that way before you were even freaking born, no wonder he has these issues. Like, it's just crazy.
In EU, I'm pretty sure my best friend Caitlin and I have talked about this all the time because we have numerous problems with Rise of Skywalker and how Kylo Ren was treated. But I'm pretty sure that Leia literally meditated all the time because she knew that Palpatine was trying to come for, I think it was Anakin, the last kid she had. Like, she was meditating literally all the time. All the time. So I'm like,
I know.
Where's that? Like,
it's just, I know. They don't, I don't know.
She's a human, it's fine.
And I don't think they had the experience. Like, they had a lot of experience to go off of too, and especially in the EU, they had all these adventures. And stuff. It doesn't feel like we had a lot of that in between.
No.
Return of the Jedi. And
I would have given my left arm to have a Jaina Solo. Do you understand?
Oh my God. Yeah.
I couldn't agree more. I think Jaina Solo would have been, and I mean, it would have, I don't know. I understand, like, it's a task for Disney to not bring in these characters and write new ones, but to have a sibling, fighting sibling.
Go off. You can kill Jason. That's fine. Go off. I don't even care.
I know.
Spoiler.
I know.
I agree. I agree.
And that's what it is. That's the one good thing they did. Like, there's a lot of weird Legends EU stuff. There's a lot of weird stories. There's a lot of weird shit. But the one thing a lot of times they got right was that family dynamic. I mean, that's what it's about. It's the Skywalkers, and boy, it doesn't get any more complex than brother and sister duking it out.
Also, sorry, going back to, if we're talking about, well, okay, you guys know we've had quite a few episodes where we're talking about family and how important family is.
It's Bloodlines, for crying out loud.
The name of the freaking book is Bloodline.
Yeah.
But something that kind of bothers me now that I've read it in Bloodline, we've kind of talked about it a little bit, is how Luke and Leia were able to continue having a relationship after having such different opinions about Darth Vader.
Yeah.
That, to me, if I vehemently stood behind somebody being a terrible dad, a terrible person, and my own brother was like, no, you're wrong. He redeemed himself. Listen to my story, and you have to trust me on this. Sorry, bro, I'm not trusting you.
I mean, especially when Darth Vader was choking her out.
All of the things.
She saw her planet be destroyed. Like, I would actually love, I mean, Luke talks about it a little bit in The Rise of Skywalker, how she left, to be with her family. Mm-hmm. I was training her, but, like, it had to have been more complicated than that.
But then listen, then you're going to leave your child in the care of somebody who you think maybe doesn't have the best judgment of character.
I don't know. I always trust Luke Skywalker, so I understand what.
But maybe Leia really set up for failure.
No, everyone set them up for failure, including Luke, and that's the whole point, though, is that the failure of the family led to the darkness. It's no different than Anakin's story. The failure of family, he had no family. The Jedi didn't treat him like family. His freaking aunt and uncle pretty much used as a commodity on the farm. There wasn't a whole lot of love there. No? Just, hey, we can never let this guy become dark. Obi-Wan, I mean, a mentor, but not really family. He's not a father figure to him. I mean, he kind of develops that connection with him.
Didn't even remember R2. I mean, like, come on now.
Didn't even, R2 is more probably a parent. But
what does Yoda say? I mean, the best teacher failure is.
Exactly. And it ultimately is the failure of family. And with the whole, we talking about Dave Filoni talking about Qui-Gon, and he would have to step up and be this like father figure to Anakin, and that didn't happen, and that led him down this path. It's just, we talk about it being family all the time, but it's the failure of that family, and Ben Solo is just yet another Skywalker that unfortunately was on the end of that.
Yeah, it was a whole.
Everybody needs therapy.
Yeah, right.
Yes. The only thing I can think of is, and I don't, this is a very small scene in the Return of the Jedi, is when the Death Star is blowing up, the only person carrying Vader is Luke. I mean, he could teleport him, but all the stormtroopers, like not one of those stormtroopers respected him enough to even carry him. It always bothers me.
Well, no, he force chokes everybody.
Yeah, I mean,
no one likes him.
That guy's gone.
It goes back to that.
Hey,
yeah, there's
that
no.
guy, I'm going to a ship. He force choked Bob. I'm out. Like,
yeah.
No.
Leading by fear only gets you so far.
Yeah, that's why the Empire fails. That's why the First Order fails.
Mm-hmm.
But that's why Tarkin though. Tarkin always had that power over Vader too.
He did.
And it just feels like that the soldiers they always looked at him as like an outsider, but they didn't because they were scared because he would choke them out. Yeah. But at the same time, when you come back to Vader, they didn't care about him. Nobody cared about him except Luke at the end. So maybe that was that whole Leia thing because nobody still cared about Vader.
Yeah. Yeah. This book, I agree there's shortcomings in it, but it's tapping into a time that I think so many of us are so intrigued by, and it fills in some of the gaps. And I think when we saw the Force Awakens, we're all like, wait, okay, so how is this resistance connected to the Republic? I don't understand. Why isn't Leia a part of that? What's happening? And I get why they couldn't dig into that too much because there's a lot already happening, but this kind of fills in some of that. And I think we hold this book in such high regard. It is a great story, but I think it helps us understand a little more of what's going on in the universe, how the politics have played into all this. Not really touching on the First Order a whole lot, right? They're just kind of out there in the
just a sprinkle.
Yeah, and that kind of shows, maybe we really didn't know where the story was going. And then one day someone said Palpatine. But I don't know. Any other big points that we haven't talked about, Holly, that you were interested in?
Gosh, I don't know. I feel like we kind of just skimmed over Casterfo, but I kind of feel like everyone understands.
There's Love Line. There was a story there to
Bloodline
be told.
and Loveline.
Yeah, I don't know. I thought it's interesting because Leia, Princess of Alderaan, there was somewhat of a love story there too, right? And it's sometimes it's easy to deny that there's anything there because she's with Han, like that's just what happens. But it's like, I don't know. Her experiences with these people make Leia who she is. Yeah. It's not necessarily Han because he's not the most, embracing guy. So it's these experiences with everyone else that I feel are really making her this hero that she is.
You guys, one final point that I want to say about Leia, which was something else that I really liked, is after she kind of, is dismissed by the Senate and they're like, whatever, like maybe she's not who we thought she was. We don't trust her. She has a moment where she wants to talk to Casterfo after he's been arrested, right? And she's like, I don't hold any power as a senator anymore. And she's like, but I am still a princess. And she tells these guys, she stands up straight and she's like, you're going to let me talk to him. And they're like, no, we have orders. And she's like, I don't give a shit. You're going to let me talk to him. And then they're all like, we're going to let you talk to him. And I just like, that kind of just shows like how like, even though she kind of fell from the position of power that she was in, like, she still has a way of getting people to take her seriously and listen to her without having to like use the Force. Like, you will let me talk to him, Mm-hmm. I liked that a lot.
And I like those moments too. It's just that like what the movies have done now have made me think like, was she using a mind trick at that point? Which stinks, right? Because it's like with Han Solo, we just believe he's a scoundrel, he's a lucky guy. But then like moments you're just like, wait a second, was that the Force? And I mean, the Force penetrates us, it binds us, it's in all of us. I get that, right?
Are you saying that she mind tricked Han into?
No, the prisoner, or the guards.
Oh.
I mean, maybe she mind tricked Han.
The whole relationship was a sham.
Maybe, but it's just, I don't know. Sometimes I enjoy when it's just, she's a real badass and she's, people listen to her because that's what you got from the original movies.
Story?
Yeah, I think that if she did mind trick them in, at that point, it was an unintentional use of the Force at that point. Yeah. Because, she even, in her monologue, she's like, I'm a princess and these guys are gonna, it's about time they started realizing it.
Yeah.
Hell yeah, girl.
Up and you will let me talk to him. And they're like, all right. And they didn't like walk away. They just backed off, still in hearing distance, but and the way I don't think it's a mind trick is because they're like, at that point they're like, they talk for a couple minutes and they say, all right, we have to go, and she's like, just one more minute, and they pause for just another second, but they know that they have their orders and they're going to carry out their time is more of a, all right, well, she is in power no matter, as she's fallen from grace, I guess you'd say, she still is a princess and we are still going to respect that, at that point.
Yeah.
Yeah. I have a question.
Yeah.
Did any of you watch that Solo 2 kind of thing? Like listen to it, what they were talking about? Did any of you check that out yet?
No,
not yet.
There's a little part that kind of, and of course this is somebody else writing it, so you'll never get it, but they added a little part in there on Tatooine. It's actually really cool. And if you do listen to it or you do watch it and hear them say it, there's a little, it's kind of this little thing with Solo, like how they move it along, and it's really neat. But it brought up a couple questions to me, but I only bring that up because we're trying to fill in what Han does when he's Han, when he's all away on his things and doing things. So I thought it was a really cool thing. I just wanted to throw that in because we're all talking about Han being gone and then Leia and then what she's doing.
Yeah, no, it's we'll check that out. And it's terrible to say that what he's doing isn't important, right? Because he does go back to Kashyyyk and there's cool things that he's doing. So it does seem a little dismissive to say he's just doing what he wants. However, though, I think in Aftermath he kind of admits maybe fatherhood ain't a cut for me. I'm missing life on the road. It's a lot to dismiss him, but
yeah, I haven't read the early books with him and Lando when Ben was first born yet, so I'm not sure all that early development stuff, but it seems like here he didn't leave to take off to the races until after Luke already has Ben. It seemed like he was more or less around, loosely with Leia, regardless of all the stuff that they're in, but that they were at least loosely together until I'm assuming, I don't know what time 10, 12 years old when they sent Ben away.
Yeah.
It's hard to say because, he's 23 because it's about 6 years before Force Awakens when this book and everything happens. So he'd be about 23 then. And then typically Padawans start their training between 10 and 12-ish, it seems like. So, assuming they're standing, they had him till he's 10. He's been with Luke for, 10, 12, 13 years now. Yeah. And at that point in time, Han's just like, well, I'm not going to just sit around Halcyon Prime while you go and play galactic politics, because what am I going to do? It's like Chewie's off with his family and, Chewie's back in Kashyyyk. So Han's just like, what else am I going to do? I'm going to go do the 5 sabers, which is a good lead into the tie into that's the race that they're doing in Star Wars Resistance.
Yeah.
That on the Colossus is training for the 5 sabers. So this, a few years down the road or whatever. So that little tie in there, which is really not really a tie-in. It was more that Resistance took what they did in this book and went, oh, here's Han's race he was doing. Let's kind of build this off of that, and which is kind of cool, taking things from the book that hadn't happened yet.
In Resistance, for what it's worth, it's not the best series, but it ties in pretty well with Bloodline and what the First Order's doing, right? They
don't tell Luke that it's not a good series.
He enjoyed parts of it, and it gets better towards the end or whatever. But I don't know, the First Order makes it seem like things are so terrible for these kind of third-party players that aren't a part of the Republic, that are out doing their own thing. They plot things that make, their circumstances really shitty, and they're like, you need the First Order, you need protection. That's what we're going to provide you for that. And that's what they're scheming here. Yeah. So it is an interesting blend. It is a kid's show, but ultimately that's what the First Order is doing. They're winning people over by creating chaos and being that law and order that people think
law and order.
And so I don't know. It's not as great as it is. It does tie in pretty good with the story, though. That's right.
Was there anything else?
I want to say.
Oh yeah, go ahead.
The timeline, so from an EU perspective, the timeline we're talking about when I brought up the whole Millennium Falcon book, it goes back to the beginning of the Millennium Falcon, or the YT 1300, I think it's called. And there are some spoilers in that book as well as AKA that happened in EU up to this point, because Han is so strong. And, because I've read so many that it's all in my head, but I'm pretty sure Alana is in that too. So if you do choose that book, there's some things in that book, but there's a lot of Lando too. A lot of Lando, because the book more follows the Millennium Falcon more than the characters, but by the end, you get Han and you get kind of these little things. So even if he was out being a flyboy or we don't know what he was doing, around this time, this would have been, I'm pretty sure right after the Yuuzhan Vong had already been, destroyed. So that's kind of the timeline where that book takes place. Mm-hmm. For the spoilers, that pops in. But it gives you what was going on. It gives you some backlash or some background to, Lando as well, too.
I like that you bring up Lando because, Lando is not – I mean, we have the solo – what was it? What's the solo book with him and Han? Now I can't – First shot? Last shot?
Yeah, first shot. Last shot, one of the shots.
Yeah, whichever it was.
The first shot. It was last shot.
Yeah. So we get some Lando there, but he's kind of MIA in a lot of this kind of post Return of the Jedi storyline. But I mean, there's some comics with him, but I love that, it's just Lando showed up. He's like, I've been hanging out with Luke Skywalker. It's like, okay, tell us that freaking story already.
Yeah.
Come on. Mm-hmm. I need to hear it. Joy, I think you had some stuff to talk about too.
No, I was just going to go back to Han and because, even Leia says at some point, because they were talking about how Han took Greer under his wing and, really trained her and took her in as a pilot. And then even after, she was no longer able to be a pilot because of the blood burn, they talked about how she was, or how he was really apt to take these people under his wing, and she even mentioned back to Luke, and now as much as he mentioned him as the farm boy and things like that, he really did care, and that he would teach these pilots life lessons that he wished that he was able to teach to Ben, and so you wonder if Han was there in Ben's life and was trying to get through to him in his Han way, but Ben is just his own separate character, and he just wasn't receptive to the way that his parents were trying to teach him.
I think everyone had a physical reaction
Jory,
to what you just
said. Jory, my friend, you're talking about a father-son relationship there, and it immediately makes me emotional because you're absolutely right. The thing that Ben needed in that moment was just a human bond, not a bond with a princess.
Or a bond with a clone.
Not a bond with a clone. Not a bond with a superhero in Luke Skywalker, a master Jedi, this legend that we hear of. He didn't need that. He needed a father. He needed someone he could relate to, that he could just learn life experiences, like you said. It's just, and that's, this is why that moment in The Rise of Skywalker makes me so emotional.
Yep.
And it's like, Han can't even allow someone to say that they love him, right? He keeps that emotion at almost like an arm's length, that I know. Like he's trying to tell his father, I love you. I know. We don't say it. But I know Ben needed that, and Han knows he does, and Han knows he failed. And so when he goes to find his son to save him, that was him at his best. I'm bringing you home. This is what I should have done a long time ago. It's so freaking emotional.
The redemption of Han Solo.
It absolutely is. And him showing up there and having that moment was necessary.
Yeah.
Han's death alone was not good enough. That was not enough redemption for me, but him showing up and Ben finally accepting that, I understand what you're doing. I understood that you needed to be there more, and what you were trying to do is what I needed. It was just beautiful. Jory, thank you for bringing that up. Because, boy, that is. Whew.
Jory, I literally had I had a note being like, "Oh, Han can be a mentor, but not a good father." So, yeah.
Yeah.
I get you.
Well. Maybe Kylo decided to sacrifice his father because that way he can get closer to Snoke to ultimately slice him in half as well. The trust.
It definitely seemed like that's where it was going. I need to show Snoke what I'm capable of. And The Rise of Skywalker kind of shows that, right? I mean, he ended Snoke, but then it's like, I'm going to go in Palpatine too. I don't know. The darkness and power just kind of consumed him, but Man, and the sad thing is too is that in The Force Awakens, and Leia doesn't necessarily have that moment here yet. She's so apologetic. Sorry, Ben, I should have told you this. You're going to find this out from someone. It's not me. I feel terrible. She doesn't really understand all their failures until Han's like, I'm going to go get or Han's like, we've lost him. Like, he's far gone. She's like, no, he needs his father.
Yeah. Yeah, I wish I would have gotten that message that she sent to him. We didn't get that.
I know.
Here. I was like, where is this? I want that. I want text of it. I want a whole thing.
What she actually said.
Guys, because that's
I don't know if he ever actually got that message either, because there's some things that they get squirrely with the timeline.
Yeah.
I honestly thought, you guys probably recall this from, I don't know if it was Rebel Watch or Flying Casual, but like, I honestly thought that this Bloodline hologram or whatever it was that she sent him letter, I thought he was going to get that at some point, and there was going to be, that was what was going to redeem Ben Solo. I really thought that something like that was going to bring him back. I mean, it kind of didn't really happen that way, but I mean, she went and got her son. She did exactly what Han
She said to do it via Skype instead of via mail.
Right, exactly.
Both of them found out, too late what they needed to do to get through to him.
Really tragic.
And that's why I love it so much.
You know what gets me about the whole Palpatine clone thing is if you go back to the Force Unleashed series or if you want to go Star Killer or you want to go Galen Merrick, whatever you want to call him, when the clones were made, they were incomplete. How did they get Palpatine correct, even though he was missing some digits? How was he so powerful? How can he pull that much energy from Yoda?
Do not bring Yoda into this. I swear to God.
We got 20 years between Mandalorian and Force Awakens for them to get the little green bean and start extracting everything they can from him. Sorry to ruin episodes 2, 3, 4, 5, whatever the Mandalorian runs for, but
story's ready.
It just seems like that's where they're ultimately going to go with that and how they tie it all back into Palpatine coming back.
Yeah.
Nice. Because I mean,
I don't want that.
What was it? Star Killer had to fight 100 of them, or if you read the book and it was more Luke, he had to fight hundreds of himself that were incomplete, and he was the most complete. That's why even at the end of that story, I always thought he wasn't a clone. He wasn't a perfect clone. He was his actual self. He had just been out of it while Vader was doing his thing. So when Palpatine was growing with power, it just made me think. When I saw that point, I'm like, okay. And then, but that's where like people with the EU go, oh, I can't take it. And that's where I'm like, I can see how they're trying to work it. But there was, and in the tubes, there was multiple Snokes that were most likely failures. So did they make Snoke and Snoke and Snoke? And then they're like, okay, we got it. We made Snoke. We'll correct things and we'll make a perfect Palpatine, but he's got some digits missing.
I think novelization sheds light on that, right?
Yeah, I think so. Well, I mean, let's take it like this. Okay, so at the end of Rise of Skywalker, he's sucking the life force from Ben and Rey so he can complete himself and come back.
Exactly.
Okay, so which force-sensitive people are we missing? We're missing Baby Yoda, we're missing Ahsoka, and we're missing however many other people that are force-sensitive between Return of the Jedi and The Force Awakens that they've had sitting out there at Exegol, and he was just slowly sucking the life force from these lesser people, and that got him to the state he was at, to where he could then puppet control Snoke off in the distance.
Yeah.
Or was it?
We'll see what happens. Michael and Holly, you guys froze on my end. It looks really cool.
Well, the other thing is, I was thinking, like, and Jory, I want to get to you. I just want to say, like, we talk about Palpatine fearing Mother Townsend, right? And the witchcraft the power that they have, like. Something that the Night Sisters do is they harness people's energy to create themselves. And he wanted to understand that, right? And to learn from it. And he feared her because of stuff like that. So I'm sure the Night Sisters have more to play and there's more to talk about there. But, Jory, I want to get to your point because you probably are making a much clearer point than I am with anything. But
no, actually, I think Brent kind of summed it up with the Mandalorian and how we have Green Bean, they have been perfecting this whole process, as the years go on. They perfected it with the clones, and then okay, now we're going to do this with Force sensitives, and and as they continue on, you probably did have a bunch of failed experiments at first. You know, I'm assuming that they didn't just have one shot with Palpatine and they're like, all right, well, better make this one right. You know, they had multiple chances. So, you know, with that process and, you know, and like you said, with the multiple Snokes and, you know, that they clearly had done, you know, that there was a lot that went into it. And, you know, and they even didn't have that process completely perfected by the time Palpatine was there, or was it perfected, but, you know, his evil is almost kind of like a Voldemort type thing. You know, his evil was so much that you ended up with an incomplete person because of his evil beings. You know what I mean? Like almost like a Horcrux.
We got you.
You know, so it's just, there's a lot that is unexplained, but I almost think that the way it is unexplained is almost more perfect because we can speculate and we can continue to just do what we're doing right now and talk about it and, you know, get everybody's perspectives on it.
Yeah, I think that's an awesome point. I like having some of the mystery there because you really can just kind of fill in some of the gaps yourself in the way that you imagine it happening and the things that you imagine these characters would have done in the situations that they were put in. And I think that that's kind of the fun of it, right? Is that then we can say like, actually, no, I think that this happened, and then have these conversations together about it.
I love that you say that now, and then they come out with the Night Sister trilogy, and you're like, oh my God, yes, I wanted that story, Michael.
No, I'm not saying that I don't want a whole story. Okay, first of all, a Night Sister trilogy would be badass.
Yeah, I
would
know.
love
You're welcome. I just wrote it.
I mean, you got it almost. 2 words. Fallen Order.
I know.
Yeah, need to finish
There's not
it.
enough women content in Star Wars.
That's actually great. However, there's some really badass villains in Fallen Order, and Holly can attest to it. When I saw,
I'm very aware. I'm very, very, very aware of it.
The second sister, I dropped to the floor. I was like, "What?
Yep,
This
is I'm very aware of it.
Awesome."
And going back to Fallen Order with Marin, I mean, spoiler alert, whatever you want to say. Yeah. There's when you. And you gotta get to the end. If none of you played the story, it's because
no one in this call has gotten to the end except for you, I believe.
I haven't even started it, so I don't even have a gaming system.
Yeah, easy on spoilers.
The end. Okay, so the ending really gets like you get scared, like you get scared. Like I don't know if I can swear, but you get scared shitless. And when you're watching it go down, how it goes down. There's a few things, and we know that there's a part 2 coming out, so we're going to get an end to this. We're going to figure out, you know, what goes past this, but how the end plays out in the people that have already been broken in the end, how that end plays out. It doesn't play into what we're doing, but when you were talking about Ahsoka's out there and everybody's out there, I want to know what happens after this because this is Disney again / whoever EA making a story together to put it together.
It was Respawn. EA can't make a good video game to save their life.
It's true. Respawn did.
Fired.
They had a lot of this game I think already created, and then Star Wars was like, hey, how about you do something for us? And like, well, we have this thing. I guess we can throw some Star Wars characters
into it.
We'll
just change it up a little.
So that's a great call. They did, and I love that there's such great stories and different like different mediums of Star Wars, like the games and the movies and the television series, and they may not all connect like we want them to, but damn it, the stories are so good that they make us buy all this content. We're gonna buy, Squadrons, the new game they just released, like that.
Yeah.
We're just going to eat all of it up, even if it doesn't connect as much as we want it to.
And Paige, you're right. I think that I'm looking forward to see how what's the new High Republic?
The High Republic, yep.
I'm curious to see how they're going to kind of weave things into that everyone's been asking for. More representation. We want more of this. We want more of that. And I think this is their opportunity to do that. So I'm really looking forward to seeing what they do with that. And, I think it would be a really good move for them to kind of add these things in as people are asking for them. And it would be really disappointing if they don't.
Yeah, more people on the council, more representation, making decisions, and how they're influencing the future of Star Wars that we know it. Like, I'm down.
Yeah. But, you guys, I think that was a really great discussion. Is there anything else that we didn't talk about that you guys wanted to bring up?
I mean, I have a couple of things, but Brent can go first if he wants.
Yeah, Brent. Okay.
I actually have to bow out, though.
Okay, buddy. Thanks for stopping in.
It was so much fun to actually talk with all of you and face to face. But I'm going to go do some things, and you just have a great discussion. I am going to listen to this.
Good.
Have a beautiful night, and of course,
you too.
Be married.
Amen. Enjoy your Saturday, buddy.
Bye, Rob.
See you, Rob.
Take care, Rob.
And always remember the dark side. Ooh, yeah.
I love it. I love it.
Night, y'all.
See you, Robbie.
Bye.
Yeah, go ahead, Brent.
All right, so I just had a couple of things, and then I had a couple other things that went into the timeline issues, potentially or whatever. But I'll start off with, I know before we started, we kind of mentioned how this ties into the current political climate. Early on in the book, I think it was chapter 2, when Leia first volunteers for the mission, she's kind of reflecting on how it's been such a long time that anyone in the Senate has done anything productive. And that implies herself as well. Yeah. So it's like she's not alone in this inactivity and this whole standstill within the Senate. That, you know, she hasn't really done much of anything either. They've all been kind of relying on Mon Mothma, and now that she's gone, you know, they're starting to see the cracks and everything that is set up as they implied. So I just thought that was kind of interesting. Also, it kind of ties into, you know, the first time Palpatine comes up, you know, he's inside the Senate and he's doing all this manipulation from inside to tear everything down and put himself in power. Where the second time around, he's not there physically doing it. He may be, you know, acting from the side, depending on how well developed he is, or, you know, his agents running the show or whatever. Yeah. But basically, it takes itself down from the inside on its own. Now, like, he doesn't even have to be there to do it. So it's like there was, like, ever since he basically got involved with the Senate, you know, 40 years before the Battle of Yavin? Yeah. Or whatever, you know, it's been a slow degradation, and they never recovered from any of that sort of stuff.
Great point. Like, yeah, even the disconnect of the Republic and the legislature, I mean, is what allowed Palpatine to even rise within the ranks, right? And then you're right, even without his influence, maybe some on the exterior, whatever, still happened again, like to a standstill. And that's what was great when we were talking about Casterfo and Leia, like two people that actually could start to see eye to eye on things. Things inevitably went to hell for whatever reason, you know, and that's the same what we're going with through like right now. As much progress as we make, sometimes it seems things just go to shit, and you don't understand why. Why can't we understand each other a little more? So you're absolutely right, man.
Yeah, and I think that Casterfo's ability to kind of be like, wow, like I had this like fundamental idea and the stance on these important topics, and I think he was able to, not all of them, but he was able to abandon a few of them to kind of, you know, agree or align more with what the populace were trying to get done, because he recognized that anything too extreme out of that was dangerous.
Yeah.
I know.
It's deep. Who else? What else? I mean, we went from.
I got one more.
Yeah.
Page take over. So it kind of goes back to the whole Vader torturing her on the first Death Star or whatever. And, you know, for her to resist that, and especially after seeing The Force Awakens, to where Kylo's trying to get into Rey's mind and find out stuff that he can instantly sense that she is Force sensitive and she's resisting. How Vader didn't sense that out of Leia?
Yep.
Like,
it was like, I mean, granted, this is 40 years ago and that stuff hadn't been thought out yet, but at the same time, it's like, well, how did you just torture her for, I mean, she makes it seem like it was hours that it happened, that he was torturing her. And, you know, and in 2 hours of torturing her, you never like sensed any sort of inkling coming from her that she was Force sensitive.
I know.
Let alone get to the whole father-daughter relationship. Just the fact that, oh, hey, you're Force sensitive. I'm going to put you over to the side with the Inquisitors and we'll deal with you later.
And you know, it's like,
in an hour.
They weren't, you know, we know that they weren't even thinking about that kind of thing back then, but it is interesting when Star Wars goes and fills in those little details. I'm wondering like what would be the excuse? Is it, we see all this torment that Vader's going through in the Darth Vader comic of like losing he's just like tormenting himself with these memories over and over. It's like maybe there's things about the Force he's losing sight of, and like tapping into that person to person connection he can't. I don't know. I'd be fascinated to see how they'll explain that kind of, because, you know, people ask these questions all the time. We're like, well, it was this thing. And you're like, it's a stretch, but okay.
Jory has an explanation.
Yeah.
Well, and it's not really an explanation. It's just kind of spitballing. But so when Rey was tortured and and things like that were happening, the Force had awakened in her, you know what I mean? Like it had awoken. And so like, she was really starting to really feel its presence and able to kind of not necessarily control it, but, she had a slight control, where when Leia's doing this, and the Force works in its own way, when Leia's doing this, maybe this is prior to, and she just doesn't really have a clue. Maybe the Force hasn't really awoken in her, to where, he might sense a slight bit of the Force, but we know from, other characters that we've seen throughout the series that, they have Force sensitivity, but it's not prevalent to the fact of like, I have control over it. Even with Finn, who is much older than Leia was at that time, or at the time when he found out that he's Force sensitive, that it was always kind of in him, but it didn't really awaken, I guess you'd say. So, you can kind of spitball with that, and try to just patch that plot hole, I guess you'd say. It just. At the time, Vader's like, well, there are a lot of people that are Force sensitive, but, they just have no control over it, and I can just, go through her like nothing anyway. So
Michael said we're all human.
We're all in that with that, yeah, and maybe even the Force
half
is
human.
Yeah, mostly robotics, but
cyborg-ish.
And the Force may be kind of concealing itself in her to not reveal itself, but still, I don't know, stand up to Vader, and he doesn't even recognize it. It's almost like the Force responds in a time of need, and even Ben doesn't. I mean, I guess he does. Yeah, because he goes straight to Snoke and says she's stronger than she thinks. So like, yeah, who know? I don't know. I'll be so interested to see how Star Wars kind of explains that if they ever do.
Maybe Leia is just so good at controlling the Force, and that's why Yoda wanted to train her, that she was just able to push it down and make it so that Darth Vader was not able to recognize that.
It's absolutely true. It could be. And I mean, we don't even know.
Those are serious dark side powers right there.
Yeah, well, I mean, she tapped into it, right?
Exactly. I mean, I don't know. But it definitely affected her, though, right? I mean, she's tormented by what he did to her. So it had an effect. He didn't get maybe the information he wanted, but it had an effect for sure. What else?
Yeah, Paige, did you have a couple?
Okay. I mean, I have like Easter eggs, which I can do in a second, but Helmet Gate, which was like my whole
the helmet.
The fact that all Ransom Conservo did was care about those goddamn helmets.
It's his
drove me up.
It's creepy.
A wall. Like he's like, I had like the best like artifact in the room, and I had no idea. I'm like, what? Like that's the whole thing you care about? Like she's Vader's daughter, and you're like, oh, she's an artifact. I'm like, seriously? Like
it is kind of, I don't know. It's kind of strange that he relishes in the imagery and the mask and all this stuff he's collecting, but like despises Darth Vader for what he did to
her. Because he killed his parents, like essentially, and then he's like, but like I live for it. Well, I don't. I'm like, you're everything about you makes no sense.
Well,
it's very true.
Maybe there's something to be said for like, how people will get fixated on something. Like this might be a terrible example, but I know that a lot of times like families who lose family members to like a murder or something really horrible like that become like obsessed with truth and obsessed with work and investigating things and cold cases, and it's almost like he wasn't able to get over that because honestly like that's a terrible thing to happen to him, and the trauma. I mean, we don't see a therapist in the Star Wars universe.
That's true. They are not to be found.
He got so fixated on that time, he couldn't let it go. And that was his way of kind of like holding on to it and trying to work through his issues is by like confronting it and seeing it every single day of his life. It was like, like a punishment.
I actually take back the therapist joke because Ewoks became therapists.
Oh, well, thank God.
Yeah. So, so I lied. Maybe Casterfo should see an Ewok, for some counsel.
I would hire an Ewok. I don't know.
If you want some good Ewok content, that Hera and Kanan books got some good Ewok content.
Hey, book club members, I do want to read that.
It's a good one.
It's so good.
It's a good one.
I guess to kind of explain the helmet, I mean, and they did a little bit in the book, but he wasn't really for the Empire as it was. He was for, the Empire with different leadership. And so I guess I get that, because he even said, when they went and did troop inspections with Leia, he wasn't allowed to do that on his own because he hadn't been a senator as long enough. He wasn't senior enough for that, but he went with Leia to go do it. And, he says that, as he's looking through these, looking at these troops, that they are pretty ragtag. They seem a little bit of how we would think of the Rebel Alliance now. And so, he's like saying to himself, like, how much better would they look in stormtrooper armor? Because as you guys have right behind you, you see a stormtrooper and you're like, you know what I mean? Like you see it. I mean, I actually see just a really bad shot, but you see
exactly.
it as a token of power. You see it as they're here to enforce, or they're here to, I guess in some cases they're here to save us, and in different things. So you see these troops, and so that's kind of how he sees the Empire and all of his relics of, like, it was a time that he didn't really know, but he has this idea of, if we would have had the right people in those places, that, maybe it would have been better. And, and I'm not saying that's right or wrong,
No, right.
But, that's kind of explaining his mindset into that. Like, he hated Vader, he hated Palpatine, but if we had a Mon Mothma in that situation, or even a Leia Organa, in his eyes, in that situation, would things have went better?
Yeah, like with the right kind of leadership.
Yeah.
Can that system work for the people?
I think I think that we would all agree that it doesn't work no matter what. Like, a dictatorship just doesn't work. Yeah. But in his mind, because he's not super youthful, but he in a way kind of is, and he hasn't grown up in a I guess a dictatorship. Mm-hmm. And so he's thinking back of, like, well, if somebody was there, would it have worked? And I think obviously he's wrong, but it's just his way of thinking.
That's a great point. It's more so the idea of the good that it could be. And this may be a stretch, and I understand that some people might not like this. If you think about the United States of America, we've done terrible things. We continue to do very terrible things, but it's the idea that we are better and could be better. And there's an ideal that everyone wants us to aspire to. We still fly the flag. We still say that we're proud to be American, even though there's been a lot of bad things that we've done, and we still hold on to that hope. And maybe there was the idea of order and that things could get done, because he has seen, like Brent said, so many times these things failing in history. We just we do this, and then evil rises. We fail again, and evil rises.
And then what? People come in and they blow stuff up, and they make a point, and
Napkin Gate. I mean,
Napkin Gate.
I mean, I think that's a great point, Jory. It's more of an ideal that he's holding on to, that what if it could be
right.
That.
I also think that him and Leia can have some more mature conversations about it without it getting too heated, and somebody acting
too
like
heated, like physically, or like
sick, nasty.
He just sweating.
She did base him on, like, Tom Hiddleston. Like, Claudia Gray is great because she's like, this is who I like fan cast as this person. Like, she has a whole list.
Yeah.
So Joff is supposed to be Josh Hutcherson. So
see, I read that too, and the way they talked about Castorfo and the description that she gave, though, does not say Tom Hiddleston. It
when
actually
I was
kind of more thing. I thought of, like, somebody like darker, not dark skin, but like a darker skin, like a tan skin type guy, and I'm like, Tom Hiddleston is white as white. Like, he is white as can be.
Right. When I was texting Holly, I was like, because the name was Ransom, I was like, oh, it's like Chris Evans from Knives Out. That's all I see in my head. Ooh, it's just asshole Chris Evans from Knives Out. That's it.
Holy cow.
That would be fine with me.
Down. Me too.
So.
I'm comfortable saying that.
I was thinking of more of like an Italian sort of fella.
I mean, that's also
exactly
valid.
what I thought too.
That's also valid. That's fair.
Papa Costerbo.
There were a couple more like Easter eggy things that I noticed in the audiobook, which Holly rage quit.
I did.
Costerbo has the same accent as Tarkin, which is interesting.
Cool.
And then there's a couple lines that like are kind of like throwback lines. There's a whole quote about when Bail told Leia about how Liberty came to die, which I thought was interesting.
Yeah.
And then there's a whole bit about Joff not being tall enough, which I thought was funny.
Yeah.
And then the audiobook.
I'm tall enough by 1.5 centimeters.
Right.
All right.
Right. I'm like Josh Hutcherson fits perfectly for that because he's very short.
Phrasing.
Yes. And then the audiobook when Leia is talking about how she feels about Vader. I don't know exactly when, but they use Padme's ruminations from the Revenge of the Sith soundtrack, and that happens when Anakin is like, murdering children. So,
those are good ones. One that I found that I liked was when she's kind of thinking about towards the end of the book. Maybe this is because I read it like 2 hours ago. But at the end of the book, where she's kind of like reflecting on like all the ways that she thinks that like she failed when like she had been with Han and when she had been with Luke, like back when we see them during like the original trilogy. And then she's like, well, I did figure out that one thing with R2-D2, and I think that she's referencing her being able to send Obi-Wan the video, right? I don't know if you guys thought that too, but I like that. I was like, that's
exactly what she was talking about.
Oh, there are two more. Sorry. She wears like Darth Vader cosplay at one point, which is like that black dress, which I thought was great. And then I found this on the internet, but they mentioned Leia like mocking Tarkin's accent, which fixes the accent problem in A New Hope.
Yep, you're absolutely.
Which I thought was great. I was like, oh, okay. I bet Carrie Fisher loved that.
It works too. If you go back and watch it, knowing that she like. Obviously, they retcon the story and say she was mocking it. It actually fits. Like
it
it's
works.
like I could see her doing that.
She would do that.
Your foul stench. It's like I get it. That makes sense. That's one of those. Like that was a great little plug that you put in there.
Another one that I really like. So for Christmas, Michael got me a Coach bag.
Guys, let's not give people the impression that there's a ton of money flowing through the CH or he's even like, wow, Michael's.
This was pre-pandemic. It's all right.
It was the outlet Coach.
Yeah.
Practice.
Okay, I have the same one over there. It's still in the bag.
See.
Anyway,
a coach of the people. Amen.
Yeah.
That's what I'm talking
Sensible
about. Sorry, had to just disclose that we're not some pompous podcast.
Okay. Anyway, Michael got me this bag, and it was from Coach's Star Wars line, which is super cool. And it has Princess Leia when she's dressed up like the Mandalorian.
The bounty hunter.
The bounty hunter. My bad.
Oh, yeah.
And
I can't remember what it's the name of.
And that's referenced in this book too, where they do a callback to. Well, remember that one time that she was wearing the bounty hunter garb when they're trying to make the disguises to go on their mission, and I thought that was kind of fun. Absolutely.
I actually, speaking of that bag, I love that that's the image that they put on the back.
Yeah. I do too.
Right? It's not her as a princess. It's not
her in the bikini.
Yeah, it's not that. It's the indescriptive, just like anyone else looking at that. Like I had non-Star Wars fan friends that are just like, I don't understand that. It's like,
right.
That's the point.
It's because it's not the normal Mandalorian bounty hunter, it's the Ubi's bounty hunter. So people don't always get that.
When it's just like she was doing such a heroic thing in that moment, taking a huge risk, doing what no one else would do in that moment. I mean, Lando in Legends infiltrated and was hanging out there for years.
Well, we're not talking about that here.
But she, that was just such a heroic moment. And I love that they depict her on the bag like that. And non-Star Wars fans won't get it. Non-Star Wars fans may understand Leia in the bikini.
I know you're a real Star Wars fan if.
Yeah, I just thought that was so cool, and that's why I got the bag. So,
but anyway, I don't know. I agree, Paige. Those are all really great Easter eggs, and I think we all probably picked out a couple and that made us laugh a little bit.
Absolutely.
Yeah, along with those Easter eggs, the Joff, Star Striker, whatever his name was, he's from Gatalanta, which is the same planet as Haldo. So
he also
picked
has
up on
two
that's
moms.
Haldo's planet.
Nice.
He's got two moms.
Yeah, I saw that.
There's some queer content in here.
And also somebody else that he was around, they mentioned him having a boyfriend from Corellia.
Yep.
So that was kind of cool too, which that whole joke was really funny. He was like hitting the Corellia really hard, and people thought it was about the brandy, but it was actually about the boyfriend.
Hey.
Yeah. Hello.
And then Corey, her intern, is in The Force Awakens when it flashes to Hosnian Prime, and there's that person that walks out to see everything. You're like, who is this random person? That's her intern, who then takes over as her staff and her, is her liaison with the New Republic.
Absolutely.
So there's that tie in there with the movie. So now everyone kind of understands why they flashed this random person on Hosnian Prime as it blows up.
Not so random.
Yeah. Right. It's not Corey. It's Core. Get it right.
Well, they call her Corey in the book.
She's not a child anymore.
Her name is
not
Corey,
a child.
She got aggressively corrected.
6 years later.
And if you knew that, you would have used it.
She redeemed herself, though.
This is true.
Both of them did.
It all didn't matter because she was blown to hell.
And then one other thing, maybe it's kind of big that we haven't touched on yet or whatever, is when Lady Carice receives the information that Leia is Vader's daughter, the song that occurs before Bale's thing or whatever, it's basically a prophecy to the destruction of Alderaan, written thousands of years before. I wrote down the lines. It's mirror bright shines the moon, it glows as soft as an ember. When the moon is mirror bright, take this time to remember those who you have loved but are gone, those who kept you so soft and warm. The mirror bright moon lets you see those who have ceased to be. Mirror bright shines the moon as fires die to their embers. Those you loved are with you still. The moon will help you remember. And Alderaan has no moon. So this was a song written back in the day. And the 5 minutes that Alderaan did have a moon, it blew the shit out of the planet.
Which was really sad because she like mentions like something that makes her cry, which I think would make literally anybody who's not a monster cry, is she thinks about like the children who like see the Death Star and like think about that song and get excited, and then it like destroys them all.
Yeah.
That's sad.
Yeah.
Yeah, even Lady Carice, when she first hears it, she says that, her grandmother used to sing that to her. And then she's like, I don't remember it being so sad.
Yeah.
And it's such a weird song to sing to children.
Yeah.
And then I think it's really cool that Leia ends up making her ship called the Mirror Bright, and so it's a whole huge tie-in that, I mean, we honestly could go, there are so many Easter eggs in this book that we could just go on all night phrasing. With so many different Easter eggs that are in this room, or in this book. So
just look around.
You keep your Easter eggs in your own room, sure.
That's correct. Yeah, no, I think that's something that Claudia Gray does a really great job of, is, she wants to speak to those fans. Yeah. And I think we pick up on it, and all that stuff is in there for us.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I think that's awesome. Was there anything else that you guys wanted to talk about? I feel like that was really good.
I got two more little things.
Oh, yeah.
All right, so we'll get into some timeline issues here. So in Aftermath, it's kind of implied that Ben is conceived on Endor after the Death Star is destroyed. In this one, in the very beginning of the book, in chapter 1, she mentioned something about, likely it was like on a trip Han and I had a few months in after we were married. But it's like in Aftermath series, they're apart the entire time from the destruction of the second moon. So it's like, so there's that kind of issue. And I think this was written before the Aftermath series. So I'm not sure if it was just kind of we hadn't fully decided on what was happening yet.
What is truth?
Right. So
is it Han?
Scandal.
Yeah.
Wow.
And then the second one ties back into the whole Napkin Gate issue. So if you watch The Last Jedi, when Luke goes in to confront Ben and they're in Ben's little room, he has a calligraphy set on his desk.
Ooh. He does. Sure does.
Leia mentions that when she picks it up, it's the first time in a long time she's seen anything written actually on paper by hand, as opposed to on flimsy or some sort of data or whatever. So it's kind of implied that Ben was the one that sent the message to Leia to warn about the bombing, is the way all that kind of ties in. But at that point in time, and then we also kind of know that she's been out of contact with Luke and them and hasn't been able to get into contact with Luke and them for some time.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like, okay, so maybe the temple and everything that went down with Ben and Luke happened well before any of this announcement that he's Vader's daughter, or that she's Vader's daughter and everything like that. And that potentially the temple had already been destroyed. He was already in cahoots with Snoke and over there with them, to where he would have actually known that something was going to go on if it was coming from that group, and then was able to send the note out because, we obviously know that he has issues with killing his mom because he couldn't do it in Last Jedi. And, so that's his hang up. And that's where he really prevents himself from going all the way to the dark side.
Yeah.
So then
it kind of like, and that's where the timeline really starts to get fuzzy as to when all the stuff shakes out, and they haven't really nailed it down yet.
But if he really is in cahoots with Snoke at that point, and he is behind sending that letter, then I guess that would mean that like Palpatine ultimately was behind all of this, and the mastermind at kind of having all these different groups do all these different things for him, whether they knew it or not.
Right. And that's Palpatine's MO.
Yeah.
No, that's definitely a good point, because we haven't even really talked about the Amaxines, and they're the ones that are responsible for it. So you start getting into some of that stuff that we really will never understand, or I highly doubt they'll go into such a small detail that they'll give us later on. But that's a really, really good catch there, Brent, as far as like that there's a possibility that Ben was the one that sent that, because they don't ever really say in the book, who was the one that did, give the warning, because they're like, that was even a point of contention, between them of, who would do this, but then not claim responsibility. But then would also tell, the people that were in there to run, and so it's that's a really good catch.
Yeah, it was.
And it would have been left only on Leia's napkin.
Yeah.
If you're gonna warn anybody, you're gonna warn your mom. You're not gonna warn somebody else.
Because Ben Solo loves his mom.
That's a great.
Ben does. Kylo Ren, whatever, but Ben loves his mom.
Yeah, Kylo hates his mom.
Well, the thing is too, like I always
hates his dad.
With his comic book though, like we all thought he was doing such terrible things, but he really wasn't. Like I
didn't.
Like, why didn't his mom sense him destroying the temple? Well, that's because he didn't.
He didn't do
it. He didn't destroy all those people. I mean, he did some crazy, stupid things, but like maybe Snoke had him out doing little minion tasks with the knights or something, like go cause chaos, go do this, and then when it's like, wow, you're gonna bomb this. No, I'm gonna go in there and warn her, not
with my calligraphy.
Yeah.
Well, and then he would have had to have known. Oh gosh, what's her name? Hadrassian.
Because Hadrassian.
Yeah, because Lady Carice says to Hadrassian, like, I told you to just like do like a minor distraction, not blow up a building full of senators. And she was like, what? It worked. And so like we know that they both knew something was going to go on, and Lady Carice didn't know that it was going to be that drastic. But if Hadrassian was like, whatever, like it wasn't a big deal, then it would have had to be somebody else who wasn't her who left Leia the note saying to run. So I don't know.
So I wonder though too, because the Force, obviously we even see in the book that the Force was working there, because Leia was disturbed all morning and she didn't understand why. She says at first she's like, I'm just in a bad mood, and they're trying to get out of her, like, why, and she just doesn't really get why, something is up, the whole morning. So maybe Ben
was trying to reach out to her.
Yeah, well, but maybe even Ben though too knew something was up, even if he didn't know Hadrassian, he's like, I need to get something to my mom. You know what I mean? I just need to tell her, I don't know what's happening, but she needs to go. She just needs to get out. And, and okay, I'm just going to say run. And however this note finds her, he gets it to her, however, whatever way he does get it to her, and it finds her at the right time. The Force works in crazy ways. So
right.
Mysterious even.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that was an awesome point. I don't know. And Jory, maybe even like snowballing off of what you were saying, like what if it was like she was disturbed all morning, Ben was trying to reach out to her like he did to Rey, but he hadn't mastered that skill yet. So she felt a disturbance, but she didn't know what it was. He got frustrated, couldn't reach out to her, so then ultimately resorted to sending a note.
But, and too bad Brent's not here for this, because he would say, but he doesn't have the dyad with his mom. So can he, you know what I mean? Can he do that with his mother? Can he reach out to her? We do know that later on that Leia reaches out to him, in her last thing, but with the way Leia reaches out to him and in the way Luke reaches out to him, the amount of force that takes ends up killing them in the end. Well, with that, could he only speak to Rey because of the fact that they had the dyad and they had somebody else, which being Snoke / Palpatine, having, helping with that dyad or that force connection, and so, I mean, there's just so many different things that we could talk about with that. But
and they definitely wouldn't facilitate a force connection between him and Leia. So, I mean,
well, the thing, it doesn't even have to be a dyad connection, because in The Last Jedi, he's like, she's on that ship, and she's like, wait a second.
Yep.
He's out there. Like, they have a connection, and even she senses it with even Han. It's almost like she's sensing Han's death, but also Ben's complete turn to the dark side at that point. So there's some connection there. So I think it could have been enough that he's like, she's not safe, something's up, I gotta go, I gotta find where she is and stop it. I don't know.
Yeah, guys, that
was
crazy.
Interesting, Michael.
Yeah.
Was she actually sensing Han's death, or was she sensing Ben's turn?
Yeah.
At that point in time, because that brings up an interesting point.
Right? Like, if anyone can connect with anyone, it's just like a love connection. Okay, then maybe it could be Han, but it's like there is a love connection for sure. They had a child, but I mean, yeah, is it her actually feeling that her son's demise? I mean, that's another thing with Rey. Rey sees it, but she feels his connection too. So I don't know. It's all
new.
You know what's funny? Jory is frozen right now. I don't know if Jory, can you hear us?
Chug, 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 chug.
He is chugging that beer for a while now.
The whole topic.
Oh, wow.
Oh, he's gone now. He blacked out from that chug. But he'll
having tornado warnings over there.
Seriously, it probably came through.
But I think that's a good topic that would be really great discussion on the next Casual Council too. I think that we should kind of dig into how that connection comes about and is facilitated, and who feels what and who gets to receive it. Phrasing.
Holly, you're speaking my language. Okay, I want to talk about these things, and it's crazy because we are just talking about this book. I feel like we could dissect the life of Ransom Casterfo, and like we could do a whole 2-hour discussion on him and his complexities. We could also then talk about this force connection. It's insane like this story is causing us to have these conversations. It's just one simple book, and we've just blown it apart. You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
But guys, any other last thoughts? Maybe Jory will rejoin us. I don't know. Maybe not.
We've lost him to the dark side.
Any final thoughts?
That's all I got.
Yeah, I think that was a really great discussion.
Absolutely.
This is maybe I say this every time, but I think truly this is one of those books that I do want to reread at a later time, because I think that I'll have a better appreciation for it, and I'll read it not over a span of 3 months, and that would be great.
I'll be honest, guys. Holly, wasn't so excited about this book when she started it, and then even finishing, it was just like, I don't know. But seeing how excited you were talking about this, I feel like of all the books we've talked about, maybe this one, hit the most, and I don't even know if you even realized it.
I don't know. I feel like having a conversation with really good people makes a difference. So thank you guys for being a part of this conversation, because I feel like this was really enlightening. Seriously. And I think getting everyone's perspective on different things. So now we're back.
Some technical difficulties. We're good. Sith plots have plagued the set, but we're back. Holly,
okay, now we're back. So like I was saying, I think that having these conversations with such a great group of people is that's why we're here, and it's such a fun thing for us to do. And so I know I'm going to go ahead and speak for Michael too. We're all really thankful that you guys wanted to participate in this book club. And I think this is something that we're still working on and coming up with, our book list and ironing out some of the issues that we may have with Skype and those kinds of things. But thank you guys for being patient with us, especially through these little technical difficulties, and for really like being here and being part of the Casual fam.
That's right. Holly, with that, you want to announce the next book? I mean, we'll probably be more on schedule, right? Another month out?
Yeah. So this one, we're going to go back to having monthly book club. And sorry, I'm doing a quick Google search because I actually don't know who wrote the book. So if you can bear with me.
You're in for a surprise.
So our next book is going to be Dark Disciple. Christy.
Hell yeah.
Mm-hmm. Christy Golden, a great Star Wars author.
So that's what we're going to do for our July book club discussion. And I will also make a post about that just so it's actually out there.
That's right. Well, guys, I hope you all enjoyed listening to that. I mean, we were in Bloodlines. We were out of Bloodlines. We were back into Bloodlines. Some of the heaviest moments there happening at the end of the conversation. And it took us an hour and a half sometimes just to get warmed up. So I love it. This group can talk about anything, and that's what we're going to continue to do for hours and hours and days to come. So thanks to those guys. I hope you all enjoyed what you're hearing. There's more to come. Read Dark Disciple, right, Holly?
Dark Disciple.
We're gonna slay that book here in a month. So we'll give a date later on when we're gonna do that book club. But all patrons welcome to that discussion. So if you're interested in checking out our Patreon page, go check that out. If not, enjoy the book club and listen to it, and just participate however you can. But that's all we got here for myself and Holly and the panel here. We're going to thank Paige. We're going to thank Joy. We're going to thank Brent, Rob stopping by. Luke never made it tonight, and that's okay. It's a Saturday night. Who knows what's going on. But our whole panel will be back for our next podcast. But thanks to these guys, and thanks for you guys for the listen. And, as always.
May the Force be with you.
That's right. We'll see you later, guys.